And online we're looking at a PDF copy. And we're going to start with where are we now? We're on, I want you to turn to page 32, please. We're going to be starting here at the bottom. I'll blow it up a bit. And give me a second here. There we go. Okay, right there. Here's where we start today. Right there. Okay, so if you can read the Chinese characters, you're all set. If you can't, then you can read the Romanized sounds underneath. And if you really can't do either one, wait a second, we'll get to the English in just a bit. Here we go. 不知真谛名无名，所作思业愚痴果，是其共生，是名色，五事乃至众苦聚。Here it is in English, right here. Not to know the truth is what is termed ignorance, and karma of thought created has stupidity as its fruit, along with consciousness arising, name and form are produced in the same way, up to and including the multitudes of suffering. Love it. Okay. What in the world was that about? Okay. I've put it here on a document so we can. There we go. Nice and big. Try 48 point. Good stuff. Okay. Here it is. Now let's take a look. This is what the early translation came up with. And sure enough, it's not easy. This is hard in any case, right? It's difficult stuff because what the Buddha is showing us here is how the mind works at a very subtle, deep level. This is the real story. This is a instruction manual for the mind, and it's not. What do you say? This is religion for grown-ups, and yet it's not religion when the Buddha describes it. It's so much more like, what would be an equivalent? If you've ever bought something from IKEA and spread that paper instructions over here, and it says tools that you need, and you get your spanner, your wrench, and you get your screwdriver, and you get your tape and chalk and pencils, and part A, insert part A into flange B, and rotate it, and when it's there in the box, in pieces, it can't possibly become a bookshelf or a clothes rack. But when it's made and it's all done and it works just fine, and there's no extra pieces, nothing's left out, right? And they're all fit. It's like, wow, that was amazing. I never would have thought it would come together like that. But following instructions, you think, gee whiz, those Swedish engineers are smart. They sold me this bookcase, and pretty soon what happens? You put it against the wall, maybe you stain it, you put the books on it, and you totally forget the fact that it used to be pine wood in a box with instructions that you put together with your own hands, following those instructions. It's holding your books. And its function vanishes into its utility. Okay? It's now holding your books. Yeah, bookshelf. Cool. I need it because why? I got a lot of books. And it's easy to forget that originally it was insert dowel A into slot C, like that. These instructions on the 6 grounders, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same that's going on. Which is to say, we're using it right this minute. What the Buddha is trying to describe to us is the way we're working while we're working it. So its utility and its function both vanish, and the Buddha is giving it to us and saying, this is how it works wrong when it creates suffering, and if you learn to use it differently, the suffering comes to an end. How interesting that is, right? Okay, so that's kind of the theory of what's going on. Now let's take a look at the words. Here we go. This is 4 lines. Starts here. 不知真谛名无名. Okay. This is called this. Buddha's identifying. He's trying to teach us by naming stuff. Start backwards. Ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance in Chinese here. 无明, no light, meaning can't see what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on in my life. Like, I'm confused a lot. Stuff happens and I have no idea why it happens. That's what he's saying here. Ignorance. 无明. No light. It's dark in here. I can't see it. Ignorance is the name we give not knowing the truth. Not knowing what's going on. Okay, we're going to, never mind about the elegant phrasing, we're going to say it for real, okay? Ignorance is the name we give not knowing what's going on, not knowing the truth. Okay, what does the Chinese say? Take a look. This is, for somebody who's never ever imagined that they'd be learning Chinese tonight, it's like, what? You're teaching me Chinese? Yeah, check it out. You'd be amazed at, no, I shouldn't say that. This is not everybody's cup of tea. It's my cup of tea. Oh man, when I first discovered Chinese characters, I was so thrilled that I could look at these things and get meaning from them. And there was some energy there that was old energy. And ABCs were nice. There's an example of something disappearing into its function, right? You don't think about the alphabet when you're writing a note. Like Phil just handed this note to the screen to show me what was going on. And I went right through your ABC. Phil, your handwriting's improved a lot, I must say. It's, your calligraphy, yeah. So there it was, and it was like, yeah, that's, okay, I get it. Never mind Phil's handwriting, which is very clear. It's like the use of the alphabet vanished into the communication that was going on. Okay, when I looked at these Chinese characters, there was not only communication going on, but the things themselves were just beautiful. And the fact that they had been communicating to billions of people for, 5,000 years in this form, that was also a bonus. Okay, so you get that. Here, ignorance is the name we give. It's what we call, not the name, is what we call not knowing the truth. Okay, so far so good. You don't know the truth, that's ignorance. It's not you're stupid, it's that you don't see, you don't have any light. Okay? 不知真谛, not know true, two truths. D here is like the true principle. Not knowing what's going on, we call that ignorance, that's 无明. Okay. 所作思业依止果. The thinking deeds, the thoughts that you make, are 愚痴, ignorances, delusions fruition. And the English says, karma of thought created has stupidity as its fruit. First time I read that, I thought, Yoda. That's definitely Yoda speak. Right? Yoda speak. Yoda always puts the verb last, you know. Yoda is like the Jedi teacher. And stupidity is fruit, karma of thought created grasshopper, you know, like that. Come on, karma of thought created has stupidity as its fruit. What that says to me is, I don't really understand this. I don't understand what it's saying. Okay, literally, word by word. That which done, thought, karma, ignorance, fruit. Oh, okay. Let's try again. Stupidity. Let's see. Delusion, meaning I'm deluded. I'm kind of like confused. Delusion results. There's guo. Bring it up here so we can see it. Here we are. Delusion results. When delusion results from thoughts we hold. What are thoughts we think? That's too clear. That which thought karma. Okay, delusion results from thoughts we think. Yeah, like we're interested in real English here. Delusion results from thoughts we think. Okay. 事起功伤是名色 Name and form arise together with consciousness. Okay. 如是, this is how it goes. This is how, this is how it goes. This is how the, here, we're not going to worry about the number of words, right? This is how the 12 links continue to create a mess of pain. How's that? Is that clear? This is how the 12 links go on to create a mess of pain, a bundle of suffering. Okay? There you go. That's what the Chinese says. Like this, up to and including many suffering groups, bunches, a lot of pain. All right, now I'm going to put that away and talk what's going on. Tell me what's going on. If you're sitting there and this is like the first Buddhist lecture you've ever sat in, you're going to go, I knew this was going to be no fun. You know, it's like, let's see, when is this over? How much longer do we have? Right, what's going on? The Buddha is saying, let me step back. We're explaining a book of Buddhist wisdom that talks about bodhisattvas. And bodhisattvas are these awakened beings, people like us, but who see through a lot of the things that confuse us. Bodhisattvas have wisdom and they also have compassion. And they really want to teach. They want people to awaken. So this is the handbook, where bodhisattvas come from, how to make more bodhisattvas, or how to be a better person along with that as your model. You know, we don't get to a point where we say, I am a bodhisattva. I was made by the Avatamsaka Sutra. That as soon as you hear somebody say that, you know they've drunk the Kool-Aid. Right? But what it does do is it shows us a way to be a better human that most people can't imagine still exists. This is humanity without cynicism. This is humanity at how to be the best possible person. And the Buddha explained it just like a textbook. It's a religious text we're looking at, but he gave this to us just kind of like a how-to. When you download some software, you get it on your computer, and you need now it's a YouTube video, right? You get a YouTube video that shows you how to do it. This would be the YouTube video. And I guess I am a YouTube video. I am, because some of you are watching on YouTube. What do you know? Gee whiz, I'm a doc file. Cool. So the Buddha gave this to us to explain how Bodhisattva behaves, what he thinks, what she feels, We're more than halfway through. It's a long chapter that we're studying. We're more than halfway through it. And it's gotten to the point where the Buddha's going inside. The first step in becoming a bodhisattva is always giving, learning to be generous, really being, open-handed generous. The second step talks about virtue in the sense of strength. Virtus, virility, right? Virtus used to mean, in Greek, strength, like the strongest. How do you be the strongest? And the answer comes, you be strongest from being good. Goodness in the heart is the biggest kind of strength. Because why? The goodness in the heart is rooted in the deeper reality. Okay. Third, patience. Fourth, vigor, constant, non-retreating activity, moving forward. Then number 5 is meditation, concentration, called samadhi. We're now at step number 6. Those are the first 6 steps of the Bodhisattva path according to the 10 Grounds chapter. That's what we've been talking about. Gee, we've been talking. Anybody know how long we've been at this? Anybody keep track? Anybody remember? I don't know. Who's been there for the whole 10 Grounds? I forget. We've been explaining this text for, has it been 3 years now? Somebody says, no, it just seems that way. It just seems like forever, Dharma Master. Yeah, okay. It's been a long time. And before we got to this chapter, it was, we had another chapter in the text. Okay, so it's been, I think, at least 3 years on the 10 Grounds. I said to myself once, if I ever get a chance to explain the 10 Grounds chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, you can take me to heaven today, Lord. I've satisfied myself that I've done what I'm supposed to do. This was, for me, a milestone to actually get to, open this text and say, can we look into this and see what the Buddha was talking about? It's that important and it's that powerful, a teaching. Now, we've come to a part of the text that is maybe the most difficult part. We've had amazing parts of the text. They're just action. And there's compassion that makes your heart warm up and beat faster. And there's, instructions for meditation. And there's descriptions of the cosmos, talking about worlds within worlds. And now we've come to the point where the Buddha is talking about how our minds work, but specifically they work to create the misery that comes to our lives when things go, you'd say, go natural. But from our point of view, they go wrong, which is to say, you get old, you get sick, and you die. Or worse than that, we're fine and healthy, but we do stupid stuff, right? Not that we're old and sick and dying, we're young, although, you could say we are every instant dying, but that's morbid, right? More to the point, in this particular chapter, the Buddha is saying, we don't see how things are, and so we make mistakes that come back to mess us up. And here's why. Here's what happens. That would be, a good Buddhist statement. It's not that all life is suffering. That's the Buddha. No, the Buddha's happy a lot. But he's saying that when you see what's really going on, it's that things go through 4 phases: coming into being, stasis, kind of maturing, then getting overripe, and then falling apart. They come into being, they stay, they go bad, they go away. They come into being. Who does? Our bodies do, and worlds do. The planet does. We're experiencing the planet right now in an advanced, rapid state of decay. Right? I called my sister the other day, and it was 60 degrees in Toledo, Ohio, on January 1st. And this time last year in Toledo, it was 28 below Fahrenheit. Right? And January is when it's supposed to be cold, and it's now like so hot there. California is about to get whomped by El Nino, and this El Nino is a lot of hot water moving up. So I was reading that the North Pole is currently experiencing 32-degree weather, which is, for those of you who do Fahrenheit, that's like water melts, ice melts at 32. So, or water freezes at 32, but sometimes not. And that's a rapid change. So, not good? Well, depends on your point of view. You could say it's totally natural, given humanity's way of doing what we do, which is extract stuff out of the planet for our living. The result of that is rapid change. So, planet's going through that. We go through it. The Buddha says, right, correct. That's happening in your mind right this very minute. I'm not giving you a theory about how, I created the heavens and the earth. No, he's saying, this is going on inside you right this minute. This is your IKEA dock that if you were to put together a human, this would be the parts you were given. And this is what you'd set up. But he doesn't stop there. He doesn't stop by saying, and therefore, that's why we go wrong. He continues to say, and here's how you can fix it. If you want that process to do something other than lead you to ouch, lead you to misery. Can you all hear the kookaburras adding a commentary? That's Ali and his family. Yeah. Is that a question in the back there, Alan? Or was that to say, yes, you can hear kookaburras? Somebody was testifying. This
hear the sound of the birds, yeah. We can hear the kookaburra.
Hear the sound of the birds. Yeah, I haven't trained Ali to request Dharma yet, but we're working on it. He's, we'll see someday. That would be great. So. One way, here's one response to what we just read. Let's read it again. Ignorance is what we call not knowing the truth. Delusion results from thoughts we think. We have an argument outside here. I'm trying to lip sync Kookaburra. Maybe somebody showed up in the wrong territory. Okay. Karma, let's see here. Karma of thoughts we create. Delusion results, here, as we translate it, we can strike it out. There we go. Delusion results from thoughts we think. Names and forms arise together with consciousness. This is how the 12 links continue to create so much misery. Okay, look at what the Buddha is telling us. If we take this backward, it really kind of stands out. The Buddha's point was he didn't like to hurt, and he didn't want other people to hurt either. He learned a way to explain, to see hurt causes, the causes of hurting. He saw why things hurt, and he wanted to show us that. So then we have a choice, so that hurting is not inevitable. Okay, what does he say? There are things. The 12 links. Let's put 12 links. 12 links. This, remember we quote Dr. Nakasone? Dr. Nakasone said, Pratitya Samutpada is the Buddha's #1 creation. The #1 teaching. Pratitya Samutpada, this conditioned arising, is the most important contribution that the Buddha made. Because why? No other religious teaching shows this. And I think you could say that. Now that's there. You know, there might be Indian forms of understanding that get close, but the Buddha's pointing to this in the mind is what's so powerful. This is not God's work. And we could, you know, take our entire lecture in this direction if we chose to say this is not a divinity story. This is the most democratic, egalitarian teaching of creation I could imagine. This is a creation story. I was recalling how we explained it when we were at the very beginning of the 12 links, beginning of the 6th ground, the prose section. We said the Buddha, remember this? We said the Buddha is lifting the hood on the engine of the universe. I like that analogy. It's a California car culture analogy, you know. That's kind of familiar. Like, we love our cars. Not everybody. Some people never worked on a car. But my favorite experience with a car was my stepbrother's 62 Volkswagen Beetle. He had a 62 Beetle. And it was just like any other Beetle on the freeway, any other Volkswagen sedan. But that was the joy of it, which was they were so one like the other, peas in a pod, Volkswagen Beetles, that even a mechanical doofus like myself could open the hood. And where was the hood in the Volkswagen Beetle? It was the trunk, right? The engine in the trunk. You lift the hood on the trunk, and there's that 40 horsepower, 4-cylinder engine. 40 horsepower. That's what it had. And I took my wrenches and I adjusted the carburetor. I did. And I made it run better. Man, oh man. I changed my spark plugs, right? I even did a valve job on my VW Bug, my stepbrother's VW Bug, and it ran better. Not the first time, but the second or third time. And I remember there was a moment, I had done this with the I had a roommate who was an actual mechanic. This is in Rochester, Michigan. And he, David, was quite a mechanic, and he would like check me, you know, and give advice and all. And it was, without his help, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. But there was a magic tool at the time available, and it was called How to Fix Your Volkswagen. And it was a book by a guy named John Muir. I need to find that one. If anybody, well, there aren't that many here. There aren't that many Volkswagen Beetles in circulation these days. But this book is probably worth mentioning because for what it did, there you go, John Muir, Volkswagen, it empowered so many people, here it is, images for John Muir. This is it right here. Here's the book. How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive. That's it. And mine looked just like that. Because why? Oil stains. Can everybody see the beauty of this book? How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive. A manual of step-by-step procedures for the complete idiot. And, oh my goodness, this one is a real, look, these are all oil stains. This has been used. I think they all look like this, because they've all been used. And this was actually how we lived. We did have our Volkswagen in our living room. We had the engine in the living room. And luckily I had my mechanic living under the same roof with me. And yep, this was the world. This is actually precisely what happened. I took this knowledge and I went back down to, see, here's a guy sitting in a chair, and here's a guy who has tried to rebuild his Volkswagen. So I took this knowledge down to Toledo, and after I had graduated from the university, and my stepbrother is 62. I've been working on a Volkswagen bus, which was a wonderful car. And that's when I learned my mechanic chops. And so we went down to Toledo, and my stepbrother's, Chris, his Volkswagen, 62 Volkswagen, was in the garage there, and needed some tune-up. And so I said, oh, okay, let me work on it for you. And my stepfather, Ted, bless his heart, he said, are you sure you know how? He said. I said, yeah, it should be fine. It should be all right. Yeah, save you a lot of money, too. I don't charge anything. And he said, oh, well, okay, you sure you know what you're doing? Yeah, try it. Okay. So I, got my How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive book, and got my tools, and Ted, my stepfather, was really nervous. He was really, really nervous. And he came in halfway, and I had, the parts exactly like that illustration spread all over the garage floor. And I could see his face kind of paled. He looked at it, he looked at me, and looked at it, looked at me. And he went into the kitchen and said to my mother, he's got the car all on the floor. He's got it spread all on the floor. And my mother laughed because she knew that I had been doing that. And sure enough, took me, I wasn't fast, but I was thorough. And got it back, and had replaced, the gaskets, and adjusted the carburetor, and spark plugs and points, gapped it, and the distributor was running just right. And so my stepfather came out and said, does it run? He said. And I said, well, tossed him the keys, turn it on. And it sounded really good. It sounded like, Cars have character. That was John Muir's point, was this is a living machine. The machines have their character. And suddenly the Volkswagen sounded happy. You could hear it. It was happy. And my stepfather was like, wow, sounds pretty good. Much to his utter amazement, the Volkswagen sounded pretty good. So, by golly, I remember that was really satisfying. And you get to know that cars these days, I'm not a mechanic anymore because you need computers to put a car together. And my ability is, I don't have that skill. But the 40 horsepower Volkswagen engine, Volkswagen means people's car, right? People carrier. And sure enough, it was. They built them for people to interact with. And interacting with a machine that then, in turn, carries you down the road and protects you on the freeway. And that's quite a wonderful relationship. So anyway, the Buddha, by giving us the sixth ground, where he's talking about the 12 links, this is the Buddha's equivalent of How to Keep Your Volkswagen Alive, a set of instructions for the complete idiot. So Yeah, the Buddha is not calling us complete idiots. He's calling us potential Buddhas. That's what he would include himself in the complete idiot category until he went out and got his wrenches and his screwdriver and the right weight of oil and showed us how to tune up our lives. So 12 links continue to create so much misery because ignorance, that first link, is in charge. Ignorance says, you don't know. We don't know. We don't see. There's not enough light to tell what's happening. And then we think nonetheless, and we get deluded. We think wrong. We don't know what to think about it. We don't know that we can actually interact with the workings of the mind. And names and forms come together. Those are the Wu Ming Yuan Xing, Xing Yuan Shi, Xing Yuan Ming. So it's step number 4. But those things arise together with consciousness. And this is profound. Okay, this line right here is the first actual description of one of the features of it, which is it doesn't go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 12, right? Some pieces of this process arise together. So if you're looking for a complete linear linking, it does do that. It rolls. It's kind of like a chain, like a bicycle chain. But it's not, there's another way to hold it up, kind of like a prism that gets different light from different directions, where you see that some things arise together. And because we don't know this, it hurts. We trip over stuff, we bump into stuff, we make the same mistakes, we meet the same people who we just can't get away from them, and yet we can't, stay with them either. And what do you do in that situation? Well, it's called ku, right? 如是乃至众苦聚. This is how it goes for lots of pain. This is how the 12 links continue to create so much misery. Okay, does this make sense? No? You want to change the channel? Just get the remote, change the channel if you don't want, doesn't, yeah. Could we get the shopping channel on? Or I think there's some basketball finals somewhere in there. Let's see. Hey, Qin Xian Shi, does this make sense to you? Hand that monk a microphone.
Is that master? It makes sense.
And if the answer is no, fix it. You fix it.
No, it's good. I understand what you want to talk to us.
It's good. You understand. Okay. Here's a thumb up. Make sure you like it in the YouTube. That there's the like and the don't like. So like my Facebook page. Okay. Anybody else want to talk about? Let's have a confession. What do you get out of the 6th ground? Oh boy. Somebody's saying, first of all, you should learn how to turn on your sound so we don't waste 10 minutes trying to get our lecture going. I don't know why it didn't work. It's always with me. Okay. Here we go. Anybody? Iwan, does this make sense? Do you go home at night and think about the 6th ground and how the 12 links work to make us suffer?
No, I think all the kids from their kindergarten, they should be able to have this access to know the 12 links. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, they should hand this out in like 3rd grade. Yeah, right. We were in meditation class this morning with lots. We had 30 folks today, and we were talking about how meditation, if you don't do it, then never mind. Nothing. There's no need to talk about these topics. But if you do it, first of all, you have to find a time and a place. Then you have to sit, get the right posture. You have to figure out how to get your body set up. Then you have to get a mind technique. Are you doing calming? Are you doing contemplating, shamatha, vipassana? Are you doing chan? Are you doing metta? What are you doing? Maybe you're counting your breath. Maybe you're doing a mantra, right? What are you doing? Okay, so far so good. You got a time, you got a body, you got a mind. What happens next? How do you deal with the results of your meditation? And what we talked about this morning was just what Yihuan was saying. How strange that we don't get taught about this. We don't get taught about what's going on in our minds. Example, dreams. How come if you start talking about dreams, people go, ooh, go, oh man, come back to earth. Why? Everybody dreams, we have to dream. But we just don't go there. We just punt the football back. Isn't that funny? You would think that the mind and all its workings would be something we would talk about somewhere. And I started as a freshman in college in psychology because I was hoping that was where they were going to tell me. I didn't last past that first semester. The lecturer in that psychology class was a man who wrote the book on cognitive dissonance. But that was all he taught, just that one facet of cognitive dissonance over and over for like 12 weeks. He didn't give us the mind at all. It was just one aspect of conflict, no context around it. So here's the Buddha going, yeah, right, oh man, here's how the mind is working at its most subtle level. Oh, you can't see that? Oh, maybe you're not meditating enough. If you meditate the way the Bodhisattva did, step 1, step 2, step 3, steps to 4, step 5 to samadhi, this will result. The result of the 5th ground is the 6th ground. He had to teach this now because the meditators were seeing this happen. This was happening in their minds. They were going, whoa, I can see stuff now that I couldn't see before. That ignorance doesn't cover everything. What's going on, Buddha? And the world honored one said, aha, monks, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you. Ignorance pulls along activities. Activities pulls along consciousness, right? 12 link. So, gosh, if we could only find a school where this was part of the early curriculum. Somebody says, but we have one, Dharma Realm Buddhist University. Ah, good indeed. So, next verse. Here it is. 了达三界一心有，十二因缘亦复然。生死皆由心所作，心若灭者，生死尽。Okay, here's what the text says. He understands, we're going to de-genderify this. She understands that the 3 realms exist based on the mind, and that the 12 causal conditions are also the same way, that birth and death are brought about all because of mind, and if the mind is extinguished, birth and death will end. Wowee. That's a powerful statement. Let's say this in long form so that, now this is a verse. It's supposed to be like this one above, right here. That's hardly verse form. We haven't done the verse justice there at all. It's not poetic, right? So, but I think we want people to get it more than we want people to appreciate the glory of the poem. That would be the next step, would be to put it into meter. Okay, let's make this understandable first of all. 了达, there's the verb right there. Gets, right? Understands. 三界一心有, exist because of the mind, that all 3 realms That's capitalized. Probably it shouldn't be, but there needs to be a footnote to describe what all three realms are. That, here, all three realms. Let's interpret that. Everything in the universe exists because of the workings of the mind. Okay? Okay, how about that? Everything in the entire universe exists because of the workings of the mind that I am currently explaining to you. Buddha says, right? He's not saying that. That's the subtext here. So pay attention, says the Buddha. I'm going to tell you how the world is made. This is Buddha's explanation of where everything comes from. Period. Look at that. This verse is so important. Here's where everything comes from. Would you like to know where everything comes from, says the Buddha. I'm going to tell you right now. This is where everything comes from. The mind, right? Like, this is a creation story. Here you go. It's a creation story. How important is this? Well, the Bible starts here. The Bible begins with God created, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. And God cast His light out across the waters. And on the first day, created heaven and earth. Well, the Buddha says, I've heard that story. That's definitely a story. I have a different story about where everything came from, and here it is. Okay? So, all three realms exist because of the workings of the mind. Liao Da San Jie Yi Xin You. In those 7 words is the Buddha's creation story. How powerful is that? Where did you think everything came from? Well, I'm much more interested in getting a coffee from Starbucks, honestly. Where everything came from, I'm not that much concerned with because I got bills to pay. You know, I have appointments to keep. I have emails to answer. I don't have time for all this. If I thought about that, I'd probably go nuts. Right? Typical answers. Yes, question. Good. Hey, super. Great. Okay. So, ask one more time. Tell me what it is one more time. Can for the answer to your question, stay tuned. February, we'll get to that part of the text. Aha. No, that would be too easy to dodge your question. I could answer it 2 ways. One way is to interpret your question, can it be stopped at some link? Yes, it can be. If it can be stopped at, if your question is, can it be stopped at every link? No. There are certain weak spots in the linking of 12. We talked about that when we went through the text part. Now, we're in the verses part that is reprising, right? We're recycling the same principles, only in verses. There are 3 places where if you simply be patient instead of clinging, grasping, you can stop the turning. There's another place, which is at Wuming itself, at the ignorance part of self, as soon as they say 无明破, 识破, 行破, right? When ignorance ends, activities ends, because you see what's going on and you don't go for it as you used to. So that's a place, but we'll get to that. That's coming up. I was only half kidding when I said, tune back in February, because in a couple weeks we'll be right at that spot, and it'll show us. And I mean, I would love if somebody became a 12 links monster and just devoured this, because what's going on is the Buddha holds up this process of 12. He describes it in 10 ways. He just over and over and over, because he really wants people to see it. But understanding it intellectually is a good thing. Being able to actually meditate to the point where this movement is visible, that's the real goal. Then you've got, it's yours. You're the boss of the 12 links. So, good question. Please stay tuned. That question will be answered soon. Okay, we got the first line here. Everything in the universe exists because of the workings of the mind. Next, 12 links are the same way. The 12 12因缘, the 12 links of conditioned co-production. We came up with how many? 5 names for this process. Pratitya Samutpada, 12 links of conditioned arising, that's probably it. Conditioned arising are the same. How are they the same? They exist because of the workings of the mind. Okay? Are the same. Work in the same way. Come about because of the same processes in mind. Right? Those 12 links come about because of the same processes in the mind. That's the long way of saying 十二因缘依附然. Okay? Next. 生死皆有心所作. All right. Now, here's the power one. This is the real key one. That rebirth and death. Let's see. Jin Chuan is not with us. He's not. Is Jin Chuan sure online by any chance? Probably not. He's probably busy at something else. Maybe he's in the Buddha Hall at CTDB. He was there when David Rounds last week in our Avatamsaka translation proposed another translation for Sheng Si. I remember what it was. Jin Chuan, sure, you can take a break. Samsara. He proposed Samsara as a translation for Sheng Si. See the Chinese right here? Sheng Si. Birth, death. All from mind that which did. Okay? And we've always said birth and death. And birth and death is a little bit, it's unfamiliar to us. What are we used to? We're used to life and death. It's a life and death struggle, right? Matter of life and death. That's the familiar way. And David's point in proposing samsara was that it's not two events that the Buddha was talking about, life or death, kind of one's good, one's bad. It's not that. Sheng Si, according to David's interpretation, was talking about the continuous rounds, the continuity of reincarnation. Let's take a look here. I've got a notes page up. Okay. Samsara, here's the Chinese. Okay, Sheng Si. Take a look. I would like people to vote for the best translation. Sheng Si. Birth and death. Rebirth and death. death and rebirth, transmigration, reincarnation. Look at that. We have a lot of ways to refer to this process that the Buddha brought forward as what? The number one pain. Why is this so powerful? It's because this is the big one. This is the big issue in his tossing over the life of King of India. If you were a king of India, right, what would it be like if you could suddenly, who can remember? India doesn't have kings, right, does it? Malaysia has kings, has sultans. Right? What if you could be, it used to be Bill Gates. Bill Gates is no longer the world's richest man, right? Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know. Mark's a dad, and he's interested in Buddhism. That's interesting. So who would be like, who could you be? Aretha Franklin? Who would you, if you could be anybody in the whole world, who would you be? Aretha Franklin, probably, right? She can make the president cry. Did anybody notice last week? There was the Kennedy Center Awards happened, and the camera showed President Obama sitting next to Michelle, sitting next to who? Sitting next to Carole King, the songwriter. And next to Carole King was who? Was George Lucas, Star Wars, right? So George Lucas, Carole King, and turns out Aretha Franklin were all being awarded the Arts Medal, I think, that gets awarded at the Kennedy Center once a year. So Aretha, bless her heart, the Queen of Soul, who's now 78, 73, Aretha is advanced in years. And see, I grew up in Toledo, and Toledo is 60 miles from Detroit. So Motown was the music air we walked through, and Motown was at its peak. That was when all the great Motown soul sound came about back then. So Aretha, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, respect, was fresh back then. Anyway, she's still going strong, and some people would say better than ever. She sang one of Carole King's songs called "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman," right? That's the name of the song. It's a really, really well-written song. She started to sing, and the camera focused in on President Obama was shedding a tear. And Carole King was going nuts because here's Aretha singing one of Carole King's songs. And it was a powerful moment for people who were there, apparently. And when Michelle was, beaming. So a song has the power to make people cry. It's what kind of tears? It's not tears of sorrow. The president, the commander-in-chief, was moved by his feelings because he liked that song. The song was meaningful for him. He probably grew up with that song the way I did. So tears can be shed for a whole variety of reasons. The thing that makes us cry, that we can do very little about, is when someone dies. Right? Birth and death. That's the big issue. You go from human life across a curtain into the darkness, and there's no returning text message telling us how it is. There's no email coming back saying, "I'm okay, don't worry about me, I'm worried about you. Try not to be so depressed." Coming back to comfort us from beyond, right? We don't know. It's a big deal. And further, individually, we don't remember from one to the next what happened last time. But the Buddha's point is to say, you know what? There was a last time. This is not our only life. That was one of the main points that he taught about. And the troubling part is we can't see it. We don't see it. We don't know. You don't know, you don't remember. So we have to take it on the Buddha's word that this is a process. And these are the names that the Buddha gave it. Sheng Si, he said, samsara is the continuity of continual, of ongoing coming into another body and leaving once again. Right? It's taking a body, ongoing, continuity of ongoing, coming into another body and then leaving once again. Right? Samsara, birth and death. And every time we leave, it's misery, says the Buddha. Every time we come back, it's misery, says the Buddha. Very few babies come back happy, it seems. Some do. Their pictures get circulated on Facebook endlessly, right? These blissful babies, you see these pictures. But they're rare. Most of us cry because it's not pleasant to come back. Being in the womb is better, but coming into the winds hit your skin and there's sights that hit your eyes. So we cry. Samsara, birth and death. So how many of the folks present and those people online can vote too think birth and death is the best translation of Sheng Si? Birth and death, okay? Happy with birth and death? Because that's the one we use most. Okay? Anybody? Birth and death? How about, nobody, no takers. How about rebirth and death? Anybody? Anybody death and rebirth? There's nobody, is that a hand? Do I see a hand there? No? Nobody likes it. Transmigration into Latinate words. Okay, one vote. Somebody voted. Transmigration. Reincarnation. Problem with that. How about your translation? The typists are waiting for your input. Samsara. How many people prefer samsara? There's a hand in the back. 2 hands. Okay. Jin Hosher, you voted twice. Okay. Phil, you didn't vote.
Fashu, could we put birth and rebirth as another item for Sheng Si?
Birth and rebirth. There we go. Rebirth meaning death is included in rebirth, right? Was that right, birth and rebirth?
There's one vote for death and rebirth online from Michael.
One death and rebirth. Okay, we got one. So we got it. This has one. And reincarnation. Let's see. Samsara.
2 votes on Samsara.
Okay, 2 samsaras. Jerry, what's your preference?
I have no idea.
Kookaburras are voting. Okay. So we're not doing very well here with our progressive.
Samsara sounds okay for me.
Say again, please. Sorry.
I vote for Samsara.
Okay, samsara. Okay. Now the problem with samsara is, let's see, we can actually test this. Let's get John Muir out of our. Okay. Define samsara. I don't know if samsara is already an English word. Okay, maybe it says Hinduism and Buddhism. Samsara is the name of a perfume. Shiseido has taken the word and made it a perfume, samsara. So if you wear that perfume, you're heading towards birth and death more quickly or something like that. I'm not sure. Probably not a good advertisement for their fragrance. Okay, so Are we out on YouTube? This is we're actually webcasting, correct? Jerry, can I ask you that?
Yes.
People are receiving. Okay, good. I got a message from somebody who said I can't see us on YouTube. Okay, they'll have to work that out. Yes. Yes.
There's updated. We have problem with first session, so please look for the updated one.
Oh, okay. All right, that'll be hard. Okay, let's plug in our. Here we go. That samsara is brought about because of the mind. Now, the reason we took that little sidestep into looking at that phrase is because look at what the Buddha is saying. He's saying, if you understand your mind, you don't have to die. The big illness, which is mortality, can end if you understand the mind. Oh boy. To be able to get past future death, I'm 66 years old. That's the autumn, right? In the last century, up until the 20th century, the average, I would be already, past the numbers. Most people don't get to 66, even a century ago. So, my goodness, imagine if you could say, yeah, I really understand how the mind works, so I don't have to go to the last link, Lao Bing Si Ku. Right? Amazing. So here's the claim the Buddha is making. This is 4 lines. That's why we're only going to get to these two quatrains today. 4 lines, how powerful. She understands that all 3 realms exist because of the workings of the mind. The 12 links of conditioned arising come about because of the same processes of the mind, not in the mind, of the mind. Samsara is brought about because of the mind. And now the questioner online wanted to know about extinguished, right? Xin ruo mie zhe sheng si jian. If one can put an end to the processes of the mind, comma, birth and death will cease. Samsara, shangsa, there it is, samsara will cease. How about that? If you don't die again, I guess that means you don't have to be reborn again. That's the point. It's that the process, that continuity. The process is still going, but you have come out of it. Or maybe it's that you have freedom over it. You have choice at that point. But, okay, so there we go. I just want to point to this and say, do you see what the Buddha is saying? I mean, how powerful is this? The major kind of suffering in human experience is the end of life. That's fearful. It's scary. If you've lost a relative recently, you know what that means. That's the big one. And the Buddha is saying, yeah, you have some say when that happens. This is the answer the Buddha was looking for when he left the palace. Remember, he saw out there in the city gates, saw an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and then he saw the cultivator who said, you can go out and struggle against these problems that popped up in your story suddenly. You were told the story, everything's cool. You discovered on your own that it's not cool. That no matter how wealthy and comfortable you are, you're going to get old, you're going to get sick, you're going to die. And then you heard the story that it was controllable. Something could happen. You could put an end to it. The Buddha went out 6 years later, discovered this. This was his answer. And you could say this is his statement about that. So what are the processes of the mind? So the questioner online, Mia just means stop, but completely stop. Right? Okay. Alan, you got the mic. You want to say something there?
I think samsara, we normally would translate that to 娑婆, right? 娑婆世界. So, no?
No.
That's not the, okay.
That's
Oh,
saha.
that's saha.
That's a different Sanskrit word,
Okay.
yeah. Saha means kanren.
Okay, so that's a different.
Samsara is a different word.
Yeah, because earlier Fasil mentioned that the birth and death, that translation doesn't hit the spot because it missed the idea about the cycle. I mean the going back and forth. But why we just put the cycle of the birth and death, and that would solve the problem, right? Instead of create another new word samsara, because birth and death is fairly strong, even it's a new idea in the Western society. But when you see,
Yeah. Life and death is scary, right?
So my vote will be just put the cycle of the birth and death.
Okay, I'm going to take your idea and raise you. If we were poker players, I say, I see your hand and I raise you to a footnote. Death and rebirth. I actually prefer, let's see, no. I prefer this. Death and rebirth give
At what point did we lose you?
Hey. Hi, I think we're back.
You are.
Good, we're back. Thank you. Okay, good stuff.
Cycle
Yeah.
of rebirth.
So, yeah, I wanted to make that point. Our internet had a hiccup, and away we went. Let's see. However, can you see me, Phil?
No, not yet.
No. Audio only. My camera is off. Let's see here. Share my webcam. Try this. Aha.
Yes.
That should work. Yes.
Recycle.
Here he is. Recycle. Yeah, we've been reborn. Hallelujah. Praise Buddha.
Following up.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
We just experienced the cycle of rebirth. Yeah, go ahead.
Just following up with Alan's comment, and it's I would vote for recycling or cycling of rebirth as the terminology. The cycle of rebirth.
Cycling of rebirth? Are you a bicycler? Is that what bicycle?
Multi-cycler.
Cycling of rebirth. It's a little bit like, you know.
The cycle of rebirth.
The cycle of rebirth. Okay, good. The cycle of rebirth. Okay, now I would put that in a footnote because that is a really good suggestion, and the cycle of rebirth, death, and it's just cycle of rebirth. So you take out the death and, Phil, right? Okay, cycle of rebirth. The bicycle of rebirth. There we go. Yeah. I don't think so. Okay, good. The cycle of rebirth. Yeah, good. Okay, I like your point. It's that we don't want... by the way, can you see my screen? You can. Okay. I am the presenter, is that right? You've made me the presenter? Good. So what we've learned is that simply by translating these familiar terms beyond the superficial, there we go, show my screen, there we go, lovely. So we are all mounted on the bicycle of rebirth, and we're about to cycle smoothly, changing the tire on the bicycle of rebirth. So what we've learned is that if we only take the surface words, sheng, si, birth, and death, it's an accurate presentation in English of what the Chinese gave us, but it's not sensitive to what that phrase means in English, what it might mean in English, okay? So, for years and years and years, sheng, si, birth and death, we said, automatically. And look at all the choices we've got, talking about that process. David gave us a boost by saying, hey, why not we go back to the Sanskrit word, because this is one of those words that's already made it into English. Samsara is already an English word, although it's Sanskrit, right? People kind of know that that's pointing to something. I wonder how many Berkeleyites would be able to tell you what samsara means. How many Gold Coast folks, if I went out onto Surfers Paradise on the main beach and said, samsara, give me a quick definition. Probably not that many, but we got a sense that it's a Buddhist term or a Hindu term. It's shared with the Hindus. And what it means is everything in between. Not just the first time you go, wah, and then the last time you go, It's that process on and on and on is what samsara is talking about. And, mind you, samsara is a pair with nirvana, which is that ending. Okay? Nirvana is when that process ends. So, okay. It means birth and death, rebirth and death, death and rebirth, transmigration, reincarnation, birth and rebirth, cycle of rebirth. Okay. So, interesting. If we plug in, samsara happens because of mind. And if we can put it into the processes of the mind, samsara ceases. There. That's pretty powerful English. And if David had not suggested samsara, I don't know if y'all can hear the rainstorm happening right outside my deck here. We've got a strong rain falling. If he had not mentioned samsara, I would have wanted to go to probably to death and rebirth. Because, even though it's Sheng Si. Because why? Because birth and death sounds like one event. I mean, two phases. There's birth and death. There's two things happening, and that's it. Whereas death and rebirth, definitely there's movement. Right? You died and then you came back. So at least it's got a sense of traveling, which I think is closer to what is going on here. All right. So tentatively, and then Alan suggested that we describe this. We call it the cycle of rebirth, which is still an option. If we use samsara, I would want to put a footnote here, an asterisk pointing down to a footnote there, the cycle of rebirth, defining it, helping the reader out, because not many folks are going to go, oh yeah, samsara, He's talking about the process of continuous cycling through various incarnations. That's a Buddhist principle, right? Yeah, most people won't be able to do that. But, now, take a step back. What's going on? She understands that all three realms, i.e., desire realm, formless realm, from our planet up to the heavens, everything in the universe exists because of the workings of the mind. The 12 links of conditioned arising come about because of the same processes of the mind. Samsara happens because of the mind, and if one can put an end to the processes of the mind, samsara ceases. Let's see here. All three realms, meaning the universe outside, comes because of the mind. The 12 links, that process of the mind, comes about because of mind. Samsara, suffering at its worst, dying and being born, happens. And if you stop that, samsara ceases, and the end of that suffering. So this is a little bit like the Four Noble Truths, isn't it? In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha says, yeah, here's dukkha, and there's dukkha's end. Here in this verse, he's saying there's samsara, and there's samsara's end. And it all comes back to the mind. Okay, there we go. That's our lecture today, this week. And it's talking about the heart of the Dharma, which is Hui Guang, look inside. Do look inside. Because that's where the action is. How neat. Because why? God is not the power figure. Nothing outside is the power figure. Buddhism is not atheistic. Buddhism is non-theistic. It says, yeah, God's there for sure, lots of them. Just, that's not where the power, that's not where the action is. There's this thing that goes on, processes of the mind that's going on. Okay, I got a question. Question from one. Why does rebirth continue after death? Why? Yeah, well, the Buddha's answer would be because we don't see. That's precisely the question that took him out of the palace, right? You're asking the Buddha's own question. And all of that work that he put in for 6 years is what it took to answer that question, right? Why is there rebirth after death? The Buddha would say because of ignorance, but that's just the first of 11 more steps. So stay tuned. You'll find out the answer. Better yet, meditate and see it yourself. Is it because one cannot exist without the other? Yeah. The way a link. Nothing here. I've got 108 links, beads, right? So you tug this one, and the others come along. Pull on it, and the others come along, like that. The beads tug on one another. If I didn't tug on this one, the others wouldn't come. So yeah, they're linked. There's this thing going on. So that's why they happen. But the Buddha's wisdom saw that it's not inevitable. You can stop it. That's the thing. That's his big discovery. Pratitya samutpada doesn't only pull one way. When this stops, the pulling ceases, and suffering. So neat, He posed himself a problem. Can anybody overcome death, samsara? And he got his answer. The answer is yes, you can. And here's how, he said. So, man, oh man, That's why, I don't know, I get excited about this because when we hear, what did we start with? We started with, hold on, not to know the truth is what is termed ignorance, and karma of thought created has stupidity as its fruit. Along with consciousness arising, name and form are produced, and in the same way up to and including the multitudes of suffering, he understands that the three realms exist based on the mind. The 12 causal conditions are also the same way, that birth and death are brought about all because of mind, and if the mind's extinguished, birth and death will end. Okay, well, I kinda get that. But when I read, ignorance is what we call not knowing the truth. Delusion results from thoughts we think. Names and forms arise together with consciousness. This is how the 12 links continue to create so much misery. She understands that all three realms exist because of the processes of the mind. The 12 links come about because of the same processes. Samsara happens because of the mind too. If you can put an end to that, then samsara ceases. In other words, your worries are over, your blues dry up, go away. That's the Buddha's project, right? That's why he did what he did and why we still care. Because of the promise that you yourself can put an end to suffering. Cool. It's worth digging into it, isn't it? I mean, suddenly it's like, oh, that's important, isn't it? What else were you going to do on a Saturday night? Okay. More to come, by golly. And it gets harder. Whew. As it gets deeper into the links, the Buddha goes over 10 times this whole experience. It's gee whiz, we're way over time because we wasted so much time with the hardware trying to get it right. Is there a, let's see here, yes. Did we look at this last week? Did I read you the Point Arena encounter from Marty's journals last week? Did we hear this? I don't think so, right? Anybody remember this? The workers in Point Arena challenging this? Okay. Okay, here we go. So this is from August 23rd, 1979. Right? 1979. Two monks are on a pilgrimage. We're in Point Arena, California, which is on the coast. The last northern point before Marty and I turned east and went over the mountains down to the city of 10,000 Buddhas. So it was time to end the bowing. 7 p.m. We did our transference. We drove to Point Arena to dump the garbage. As we pull into a closed gas station, the car is surrounded by 8 to 10 men. They're tough-looking and drinking. They knock on the window. "Hey, what's happening, man? You're the one that's bowing, right? What gives?" asks one in a mocking voice. "Oh, you don't talk? How about him? He talk? Neither one of you talk. How are we supposed to talk back at you? Right all over your car, maybe?" Lots of loud laughter. Another man steps up. He's got a big scar across his neck, and he's holding a whiskey bottle in one hand. "What's their gig?" he demands. I give him a handout. So we had this, like, one sheet describing the pilgrimage for world peace going up the coast. Your vocal cords are shot, huh? No, it's their penance, says one. Hey, don't hassle them. They're doing their thing, he says. He starts reading the handout. Here, have a drink on me, or can't you? Your religion forbid it? Marty, this is Marty's journal. He says, How about him? Pointing to Heng Sure in the back of the car. He can drink. Look, he's praying. Everybody laughs. You see, his wife just had a baby. That's why he's so rude and obnoxious, says one of them. He's missing an eye. He has a long, scraggly beard. You can imagine 8 guys around the car. Yeah, usually I just go around and beat the hell out of people, but today I'm celebrating, he says. More laughter. Guy's reading and he says, man, they've been at this since L.A. 2 years. That's a lot of miles. Many people hassle you? Marty goes, no. Really? How about your car? Holding up okay? Another truck pulls up behind us and more men jump out. The whole scene is touch and go. It could turn into violence or dissolve in a minute. We can't roll up the car window and pull out of the lot. There's too many of them. We're boxed in. Besides, it would only postpone a showdown for a day or two. When we bow through a town at a mile per day, we can't run or hide. We've got to learn to get along with people. Pilgrims are on their own. Kindness, compassion, joy, and serenity are all we need to survive. They cover all situations, and they leave everybody feeling good. Before going into town, Marty says, it occurred to me there's something special about bowing for such a long time outside, slowly from town to town. It's hard to describe, but after a while, everything and everybody seems the same, level and equal. All the men look like brothers or fathers, all the women like sisters or mothers. The different communities and counties blend into one continuous neighborhood from LA through Asia and back up the coast to where we are today, Point Arena, California. Everybody looks familiar. Every place feels like home. We aren't aware of leaving one place and entering another. The bowing levels all differences somehow, and being one with everyone kind of sneaks up on you before you know it. As tough and threatening as these drunken men were, Heng Sure and I didn't feel uptight or angry. There was no rejection or hostility in the air. We all felt this, and so things cooled off by themselves. Then he's got a quote from the sutra in here that goes, when one's mind is level and equal towards all beings, one can accomplish perfect, full, great compassion. When one uses the heart of great compassion to accord with all beings, one can accomplish making offerings to the Tathagata. So that the guys say, well, you got to get haircuts, or do you do that yourselves too, jokes one man. Some are huddled together reading the handout, others are peeking in the windows or offering us swigs of a floating whiskey bottle. We slowly back up, smiling and waving. Hey, shouts somebody, you know karate? Yeah, says a couple more. You know kung fu, martial arts? They pose in TV martial arts stances with beer bottles in hand, dirty overalls and construction hats. It's a funny tableau. I nod no and fold my hands, indicating that's our kung fu. They like that, and everything softens. Smiles come to some tough faces, as if to say, yeah, the world could use a little of that kung fu. We slowly pull out, and the one whose wife just had a baby shouts, well, all I gotta say is, you better be careful, you cosmics. Don't float away and disappear into the cosmos. Don't let the cosmos eat you up, he says. So that's a encounter that I just dug out of the journals. This is what I'm doing here the last couple miles. We're in the bowing, we're 50 miles from CTTB. Just, you know, you can go to that edge of the coast from the city in an hour, you know. But wow, that was one of those moments for sure. So it is time now to dedicate merit. Thanks for joining us again, and Happy New Year, everybody. We didn't go into our New Year's resolutions. I was going to have everybody one by one explain your New Year's resolution, but somehow we just didn't have the time. That's how it goes. Let's transfer the merit and see if we can't, we pretty much proved this guitar doesn't make it across the EQ'd mic, but let's struggle along. Here we go. As one, radiant with love, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find healing, may our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may happy sorrow meet their end. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Heng Sure, do you have any announcements for everybody?
The next 3 Saturdays, we will still have the lecture, right, Dharma Master? But
Yes.
but the morning events will be different. We'll be having a chant session at BBM. There'll be a beginner's chant as well, with some instructions on sitting. So if you're coming, just be aware that the next 3 Saturdays, although we still have the lecture, but the daily schedule has been changed.
Okay, lovely. All right, happy 2016. And anybody who driving up and down the coast, please take it easy. Enjoy the sights. LA will still be there if you get there a little slower, especially with the weather coming in. So please have a week full of blessings and wisdom, and see if we can't contemplate the workings of the mind. Amen. Heng Sure, you want to lead us in bowing
Okay.
to the Buddha?
Bye, Dharma Master.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.